The Israeli cabinet agrees to swap Palestinian prisoners for some hostages taken by Hamas. The exchange would happen during a brief truce, but those with loved ones held by Hamas are still aching for details.
Nobody can imagine how we feel.
People around the world are on edge to see what happens next. So obviously this is still a developing story, the details still being filled in. That's why we need to go to Washington. Our correspondent Paul Hunter is there to keep us up to date on the latest. So Paul, can you walk us through the details as of right now of this deal that's being reported?
Yeah, well, basically it's a 1-for-3 deal. For every one Israeli hostage freed, Israel will in turn release 3 Palestinian prisoners currently held by Israel. The deal calls for 50 Israeli hostages to be released, all of them women and children. That means 150 Palestinian prisoners in Israel will be freed as well. It's a swap. Under Israeli law, aspects of the deal can be challenged in court, so there's a 24-hour pause on any of it getting started. That means it'll likely all begin Thursday. But even then, the releases will be spread over 3 or 4 days, with small groups of hostages released each day. The other big news is that all of it comes with a 4-day pause in the fighting, a truce to allow all of this to happen. And there's a promise from Hamas that Red Cross workers will be allowed into Gaza to check up on the rest of the hostages who, for now, are being left behind. And finally, there's an agreement from Israel to allow 300 trucks of aid into Gaza per day henceforth. A lot of stuff in play here, Adrienne, but the headline, 50 of those Israeli hostages to be released beginning Thursday.
So, Paul, in a situation like this, it's always interesting to know how the deal came about. What do you know?
Yeah, well, we know that talks have been underway on this for weeks, but Benjamin Netanyahu today credited U.S. President Joe Biden with some last-minute tweaks to get the deal past the finish line. And Qatar is credited with playing a key role in getting Hamas on side. Tonight, there was a lengthy debate among Israeli cabinet ministers on it, but in the end, at the urging of Netanyahu, it passed, and with a strong majority.
And so then I guess now that it's passed, there's a 24-hour period, but what about the war itself? How does the deal affect the war?
Look, to be clear, as it stands, once the truce ends, the war continues. Just today, Netanyahu reiterated Israel's view that it is committed to the destruction of Hamas. And despite this deal, Hamas, likewise, is not wavering from its commitment to eliminate Israel. The headline tonight is the deal, Adrienne, but the reality is that the war itself remains far from over.
All right, Paul Hunter, thank you.
You're welcome.
So for more insight into this developing story, I'm grateful to be joined by Janice Stein, founding director of the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto. Janice, what do you make of the fact that we're talking about a deal now? It's 45 days after these hostages were taken. To a degree, was it not always going to be about a prisoner release of some kind?
It sure was always going to be, but it was also going to be about absolutely degrading Hamas's military capability. Those were the two objectives for Israel, and it turned down a deal before it felt it had made sufficient progress.
So is that why it took so long?
That is why. The same deal was offered to Israel with minimal variations last week. They said no.
Beyond some of the hostages, women and children, what else does Israel get out of this?
Well, Israel does get those hostages back. Tremendous political pressure inside the country. Even the army understood they had no choice. And there is also a possibility that these talks could go on and they could get more hostages back.
Is there an inherent risk in a deal like this for either side?
There are really serious risks. The ceasefire is probably the riskiest part because there's no lines to deploy to. This is a fragile ceasefire, Adrienne.
What do you mean no lines to deploy to?
When you have a ceasefire, forces pull back to an agreed-on line. Israel's forces are surrounding Gaza City. There is no line to withdraw. One ambush, one violation, the ceasefire breaks down.
Yeah, I'm curious about, I know that you were at the Halifax Security Forum a few days ago talking to former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. I know that you have connections in a number of circles of power around the world. There's so much conversation around the world right now about the number of casualties in Gaza, there is a lot of rage about what is happening. Is that message getting through to the circles of power in Israel?
They certainly understand the anger around the world, but they are not really focused on that, Adrienne. There is an iron determination, I've never seen anything quite like it, that Hamas will never be in the position to do this again.
Do you think that is a likelihood? I mean, how do you destroy an entity like Hamas and not create another one in the process?
Well, you have to destroy only their military capability, because you certainly cannot destroy the ideology and the movement. Is it achievable? It will be possible to weaken Hamas. What is surprising among the governments that were there over this weekend, there's a shared understanding that Hamas cannot come back as the government.
And in terms of what the next few days look like, I mean, it's impossible to predict what's going to happen long term, I think.
You're right.
But in terms of the next few days, what are you watching for?
There will be a small number of hostages released each day in order to keep the incentives going for the ceasefire. What am I watching for? The start of the next round of negotiation during this ceasefire to prolong it in exchange for an additional release.
So you're not anticipating a big group of hostages coming out at once?
No, no. It's going to be a staged release spread out over the 5 days to make sure that there is no incentives on Israel's part to violate the ceasefire. I'm hoping that, in fact, those negotiations will start during this pause for the next group of hostages to come out.
And for the men to come out? Because we're only talking about women and children as hostages and women and children as prisoners.
They're men who were civilians, not soldiers. That will be the next group. Some of them are older. That will be the next group. There is the possibility, if the hostage negotiators are good enough to seize the opportunity, that happens during this ceasefire.
And then I suppose eyes, too, on what happens elsewhere in the region. Lebanon, Syria,
Yes,
Yemen.
yes, but it's unlikely that Hezbollah would disrupt during the ceasefire. So I think we've got this pause. The real question is, what do we make of it to broaden it and deepen it?
All right, Janice Stein, it's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Always
Thank
a pleasure to be with you.
After the break, Rosie's here with a special edition of At Issue. Hey, Rosie.
Hey, Adrienne. The federal government, as you know, tabled its fall economic update. It appears they're trying to limit spending, much like most Canadians.
We have focused relentlessly on ensuring that government investments deliver real economic opportunities for all Canadians.
What does this pared down update mean for the next few years? Chantal, Althea, and Andrew join me to talk about that coming up. At Issue on a special Tuesday edition, the Fall Economic Statement.
Our economic plan is focused on building an economy that works for everyone.
But in challenging economic times, is it enough to help Canadians?
Common sense conservatives will vote non-confidence on this disgusting scam.
So far, we're going to continue to work to get Canadians help.
So with little new spending, what message should we take from this update? Hi there, I'm Rosemary Barton, here to break it all down. Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, and Althea Raj. Good to see you all. I'm going to start with you, I think, Chantal, on what message you're taking from this. And of course, I said small spending. That is a relative statement. It's small spending compared to things this government has done in the past. But what message do you take from the update?
So I'll hold my breath until Andrew is overjoyed by the smaller spending. Meanwhile, I'm reading politics into it for obvious reasons. We're coming to an election. We are in a pre-election setup. And I think the Liberals have realized that they're going to be running against the Conservative Party that claims it's going to balance the books. So basically, they are set to do a number of things. A campaign on this notion that if they were re-elected, because that is in the horizon where they placed it, they would limit deficits to 1% of the GDP, 26, 27. So they'll either be dead or be there. And then probably challenge Pierre Poilievre to demonstrate how we would get rid of a $38 billion deficit, and that's the forecast, not necessarily what would happen. It could be higher once the election is on. Does this make it a solid fiscal plan? I'm not convinced, but what it also says, there's a downside to this, is that if the Liberals are serious about what they said today and the 1% of GDP in 26, 27, then they have no money to promise anything because they've run out of fiscal room.
Yeah. I mean, that was what I thought too, Andrew, was if things are this bad, how on earth are they going to table a budget and then campaign on a budget at some point? But first, give me your impressions.
Well, there's a whole lot of distraction, basically. They put the housing stuff up front, which is fine, but is really not going to make that much of a difference to housing affordability, to be frank. It's tinkering around the edges. There's some stuff in there about competition that's intriguing. We'll see what it means in the end. But all of this is basically to divert your eyes from a deteriorating fiscal position. They managed to keep the deficit this year to $40 billion by suddenly discovering another $5 billion in expected recoveries of overpayments for COVID payments. So we'll see whether those materialize. But out years, the deficit's now going to be another $12 billion more than they projected just 7 months ago. $12 billion a year more than they projected 7 months ago. They keep announcing guardrails and anchors. So the new one is 1% of GDP for deficits. But meanwhile, the old guardrail, one was supposed to be in place of a constantly declining debt to GDP ratio. They've missed that again. And in fact, it's going to continue to rise for the next 2 years. So, and the final thing is that the interest costs now are way over what they projected, again, just 7 months ago. Next year's interest costs are going to be $52 billion. That's twice what we spend on national defense, which, by the way, we're not increasing. So they're getting hammered by increased interest costs. They're getting less and less fiscal room because of it, but they don't seem to be overly perturbed by that.
Althea.
Well, if they are, they can't say that they are, right? They have to pretend that they're not. Politically, I think it's interesting. I agree with Andrew on a number of fronts, but I don't want to minimize some of the changes that were announced today because I think those edges needed to be tinkered with when it comes to housing affordability, especially for the most vulnerable in our country. It is very much a political document. A lot of the spending is actually booked not for next budget, but the following budget. So one would assume the election budget. Yeah. I thought it was really interesting how some of the measures in the fiscal update are intended to steal some of the Conservatives' thunder. I think about when it comes to labor mobility, for example, that is something that Pierre Poilievre has talked about. Now the government says something like it's going to use the provincial transfers to try to push for change in that direction. I thought the carbon contracts for difference is very interesting. So this means that basically the government is saying to companies who may not have invested or who already have invested that if the price on greenhouse gas emissions drop, that the federal government would be compensating them financially for that. So that ties Pierre Poilievre's hands. He has refused to say whether or not he would remove the price on carbon when it comes to large emitters. This makes it actually easier for him to say that he would not. And then the other thing I thought was really interesting was not at all in the fiscal update, but was Jagmeet Singh's response to the fiscal update, where he actually acknowledged that he doesn't expect a costed plan on pharmacare. And I'm not sure that New Democrats actually realized that that's the leadership's position, that all they want is a framework. They don't actually expect a plan. So lots of really interesting political tidbits coming out today.
Chantal, what did you make of some of those pivots? That, I mean, certainly saying now we'll have some legislation that will be a first step to pharmacare is markedly different than where they were just a couple of months ago.
True enough, but I think Jagmeet Singh had done some preventive medicine on this last week when he said he did not expect pharmacare to be part of the fiscal update. And I read it as we're going to give them a pass. And why would they not? Because there are no grounds here for the NDP to want an election to be fought on. The other problem the NDP has, and we keep going back to it, is if you're going to have a pharmacare program the way that NDP members want it, you need some provincial buy-in. I'm still waiting to see that provincial buy-in, and I don't see it.
Where does this leave the government? And I'll just get everybody quickly on this, Chantal, politically. Like, if it has to go out and sell this to Canadians as people, we're doing things to help Canadians, where does it leave them?
Well, it leaves them alive to fight another day, which is as good as it can get for them at this point. I don't think we will be talking about the fiscal update next week.
Andrew.
Yeah, it's pretty neutral. It's not really much of a shift to the right or left. That may simply mean that they're kind of frozen in the headlights, waiting until the next budget, and where they'll make more of a significant move, perhaps. But this one is not a huge movement in one direction or the other.
Is that a good thing, though, for them at this stage?
Politically, I don't know. I mean, I think it depends on, if you think you can get back those center-right voters that have fled to the Conservatives, if you think maybe they're going to get fed up with Poilievre or whatever, then you'd stick to a more fiscally conservative line. If you thought those voters are lost to you and the only thing to do is to try and squeeze down the NDP vote, then you'd move to the left. They haven't really done much of either in this case.
Okay, Althea, where do you think it leaves them politically? And in terms of convincing Canadians they are fiscally responsible and have their backs?
Well, I think in a way the opposition is doing their job for them, because the Conservatives are saying you're doing too much, you're spending too much, you're adding inflationary fuel on the fire, and the NDP and the Bloc are saying you didn't spend enough. So this is like the perfect position for the Liberals to be in. So if I was a Liberal in the Prime Minister's office, I would be thinking this was a win. It's as good as they could have expected.
Is that fair, Chantal? That they are coming out sort of in the middle, and that's the place to be with this?
I wouldn't call it a win, but breaking even this fall would be a first for the Liberals.
It's fine to be in that kind of middle when you're at 40 or 45% in the polls. When you're at 25%, you may need to think a little bolder.
Yeah, and do something that will convince people to go one way or another. Okay, well, in spite of the fact that you don't think we're going to talk about this again next week, we might talk about it again on Thursday. But we'll see what the rest of the week brings. Thank you very much. We'll be back, as I said, for our regular airing of the At Issue panel this Thursday. See you then, if not before. And now I'll send things back to Adrienne in Toronto.
Thank you, Rosie. Coming up, from expiring food to the birth of a local legend.
He's a local hero.
I hate potato salad. It's my enemy.
This is so weird. 5 pounds of potato salad and a newly crowned Halifax hero. Next in our moment.